Hey, this is Rod with Win by Doing, coming to you with something a little bit different if you're used to seeing my eBay and reseller related videos. It has been requested that I come back with some Gimp videos as well. This is going to be a very basic beginning session. If you came here for reselling related, not related to Gimp, please feel free to go and browse some of my other playlists. And if you are here for the Gimp videos, feel free to browse the other ones if you like. But if you're just interested in the Gimp related, then keep an eye on my Gimp for merch playlist. So this is only the second one in the series. I know it's been a long time since I did the first one, but I am going to try to focus on getting more of these out to help y'all any way that I can. Just a disclaimer, I am no expert at Gimp. I just try to pass on the knowledge that I acquire in layman's term, if you will. So today, first thing we're going to do is discuss what are we going to do with, what type of images are we going to create. I just went out to did a search on different types of branding and social media image sizes, and out here on make a website hub.com, there's several other websites out there. This is just one I came across. This is going to give you the different sizes for media. So for instance, Facebook, it's going to show your profile image, your cover photo image, shared images, shared link images, highlight images, and this is really the size of the image that is going to be displayed, or how it's going to be displayed. So if you're wanting to come out here with a cover photo, you would know that your image, you need to have 820 by 310 pixels. That's the px there. And going down, we have LinkedIn, YouTube, 2560 by 1440, that's a channel cover photo. Then you have your video upload photos, 1280 by 720, and so on. Where does that come in with Gimp? Well, this is just an example showing you different image sizes. Will kind of give you an idea how to open your images. So if we go over here and let's say we wanted to create a YouTube channel cover photo, we know that it needs to be 2560 by 1440. I'm just going to shrink that down a little bit and keep it down on the bottom of the screen. If I can just get it down just a little bit. Well, we see it right here. I'm going to go ahead and pop open Gimp. And when you, let me close this out and just show you how it's going to look when you first, okay, this is how it's going to look more than likely when you first open Gimp. You may have a couple other windows pop open. If you don't, we'll go over how to get those windows open, because there's a couple that are very important when you do your design. But for this instance, we know we want to make it 2560 by 1440 pixel. So let's go up here to the file menu. Here you have new, create, open as layers, open location, open recent. These are going to be, we're going to be creating a new image. There's other ways you can create from, you can create things that, you can create buttons, logos, a new brush, which we'll talk about brushes at a later time, different patterns, page themes. Open as layers, that's going to be primarily if you're going to be creating or manipulating other images, or you want to add elements to an existing image. That's where open as layers come in. Open location, if you want to open a file from a particular location, say somewhere out on a website, you can put in the URL there. Open recent, this is going to have all the recent images that you've been playing around with. And then we have the save as, save a copy. Those all three are pretty much the same thing. Save, you're going to save your file initially. with a particular file name. As you work on the document, if you hit save, it's going to continue to save over that same source or that same file that you originally were working on. Save as, this gives you the ability to rename the file and save it as another copy without changing, or saving as another file without changing the source or your original image, and saving it as a different name. Save copy is very similar to save as. It's going to save a copy of it without affecting the original, your source or your original file. So it's going to save it in the state that you currently have it in, and leave your original sitting there the way it was when it was last saved. Revert, this will allow you, if you're going through and changing, you've made 10 steps of changes of a particular image, and you decide, I don't want to do that, you can actually reload the image back to its last save point. Then you have export, and export as is pretty much, you want to, when you get done with your imaging, you want to export it as a particular file format, then JPEG, PNG, whatever. That's what the export and export as will do. Export as just as a new name. If you continue to hit export, it's going to overwrite your existing file. Create a template. If you watched my Gimp tutorial for merch, that was a template that we use. So you can create your own templates as a common starting place if you need to. And you have page setup, print, properties, and quit. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a new image. We're going back to our little cheat sheet. We have 2560 by 1440. So you're going to change, if you have an existing, there's templates out here, or if you have created your own template, you can. We notice here that there is no 2560 by 1440. So we can come down here and manually do our width is going to be 2560, and then change the height to 1440. And we're going to leave this on pixels. It does give the option to do actual measurements, but for web images in particular, we're gonna pretty much maintain the pixel dimensions. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. And basically that has created our template, or our palette, as they would say, for this 2560 by 1440 dimension. And I'm going to hold the control button and scroll my wheel backwards until you can actually see that's going to be the dimensions that we're going to go by. So this is what you would consider your canvas. So if we go to canvas size, you're going to see the canvas size here. And that's just a good way to check your width and height of your canvas. So we kind of covered, if you wanted to add something to this image. Now you have your canvas, and you kind of look at the entire picture you're creating is your image. Then you have the canvas, which is the size of the overall size of your the working space of your image, and layers are going to be different. I kind of look at it as, if you're familiar with, let's see, screen printing, they work a lot with layers. Each color, for instance, they'll have all the pieces cut out for it that needed to be red, and they put that down. They cut all the pieces out of that layer, that sheet or film, and they push their ink or paint or whatever it is, the medium, over that so that it paints that image. So it's also kind of like I think like animated storyboards where you have different, there's that they create different layers as well to show the different steps of creating their comics or animation. Layers here is similar to that. I don't know of a better way to describe it, but what it's going to allow you to do is create multiple components that lie on top of each other in whatever order you put it, so that you can work with each one of them independently. So that would be the difference between image is the overall image you're creating, the canvas is the workable area of that image, and layers are the different components that you're going to add to create your overall image. The edit menu, this is pretty much similar with all Windows based programs. You have your undo, redo, and here's your shortcut keys. So if you do something and you want to undo it, you can hit the control button and Z to undo, and you can usually go multiple steps. I know some programs limit you to the number of steps you can go back. I have not reached the limit to this, but I'm not going back more than 10 or so steps at any given point, and rarely am I going back that far. Control Y, let's say you went back 10 and you only need to do 8, you can use the Control Y shortcut for redo, so you can redo what you just undid. I've never used fade, so that would have to be something I would have to do further research before I brought it. Like I said before, I'm not an expert at this, but I have used it quite a bit and can kind of cover what I do know. Undo history. This will have your everything that you can undo. Cut, just like in Word or Excel, it's pretty much a delete, but also makes a copy of it. So if you just hit a delete on something, it's gone unless you can't paste it anywhere. But if you cut it, it copies it and removes it, and it'll actually put it in your clipboard, and you can paste it into another layer or somewhere else where even another document. Copy visible, that's going to copy everything visible in the selected region. Copy is going to copy just what is within your selection. Paste, that's going to, I don't know how best to describe paste. It's going to put it back on the screen. Paste into, it allows you to paste into current selection. And that would be more, if I had a selection and I had something copied, and let's say I created a circle as part of my selection, it would allow you to paste into that selection, not over the top of it. And this is paste as, here's your selections there, new image, new layer, a new brush, pattern, and we'll talk about brushes when we get over to the tools menu. But right now in this particular video, I'm just going to cover some of the basics of navigating Gimp. You have clear, that's just going to clear everything in the selected region. Fill with foreground color, background color, fill with a pattern. Those are just going to, once you have a selection, you can fill that with, as it states, a foreground, background, or a pattern, and you would select the pattern that you wanted to fill. Preferences, this is going to cover all the preferences of the application itself, Gimp itself. I don't think I've ever come into a point where I had to manipulate the way that everything's laid out. But you can create new tool options, um, change appearance of the toolbox. But like I said, I pretty much just left that as default. Keyboard shortcuts. Here you can enable or disable different keyboard shortcuts. So let's say if you want a shortcut for file, the file menu, this will tell you all the shortcuts that are there that you can use if you enabled them. So I'm going to close out of that, and I think that's going to be pretty much it there. I've never done anything with modules or units. That might be something I need to learn, so that it might be a valuable tool for me to use, but I haven't come across a need where I needed to use it. Select, you're going to use probably in here. The reason you have some of this stuff's going to be in your toolbox. For instance, select by color is in there. There's a shrink and pretty much a that's kind of, let me back up there. Pretty much select by color is going to be in your toolbox. If you have a section selected and pretty much the way selections work is if you have something selected, and I'll show you how to identify that. And let's say, and what it does is anything that you can do to that selection is going to be within the boundaries of the selection, unless you invert your selection. And basically that's what this button does. And now the only changes that can be done are going to be outside of that selected area. So that's going to be something you'll come across quite a bit and use. The select none, if you want to unselect everything, you just come here to select and click none, and that will unselect everything that you had previously selected. Select all, select everything. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. I kind of skipped right over that. Select by color. Let's say you had an image that had all of a particular color in it, and you want to remove that color. You can go in, zoom in, and click on one of the pixels with that color in it, and it will select everything in that picture that's, let's say, blue, one shade of blue. And then you can go in and hit the delete button, and it'll delete everything of that color. It comes in handy. The only issue you will have is if there's a lot of shades of of that color, it's only going to select the shade, that specific color. So sometimes it comes in useful, but sometimes it can be kind of a pain if you're just trying to remove large areas. Selection editor, I guess this gives you, I haven't ever used this, so there's your invert the selection. I think this is, if you see this dotted line, that shows what's selected. So if I inverted it now, it wasn't shown. So that's your invert selection. Save the selection to a channel. We'll cover that on another video. Selection of path. We'll cover paths at a different time. And I would just say right now I wouldn't worry too much about the selection editor. Feather and sharpen. Let's say you selected the boundary of an area and you wanted to kind of, it was a sharp boundary and you wanted to feather that out. That's what the feather it'll blur the border. And the sharpen will do the opposite. It'll remove some of the fuzziness from the selection. They're good quick tools, but there are other things that you might want to do to those borders to make them look a little bit more, I guess, let them flow a little bit better. Shrink and grow. This is, let's say you selected it. Let's say we had a circle here with a dark background, and it was blue with a black, and you wanted to you selected inside, and it selects inside that circle. I should have just pulled something up. you can actually grow that selection or shrink it down to include that border or exclude it. That's pretty much what the shrink and grow does. Border, I use this quite a bit with if I have text I want to put, say I have red text, I want to put a black back or black border around it. I can color select the red text and then add a border, and it gives you the choice to put a number to represent size of the border. And if I don't know if you can really see that, but you can see how it allows you to put a thicker border. Then you can just color fill that selection, so your selection would then become the border and anything in between those two lines that's creating the border. Distort, I haven't used it. Looks like it distresses the selection, whatever that means. Rounded corners, I've used that a little bit, creating if you use a rectangle tool and you want to round those corners, I've used that. And I don't think I've used this toggle quick mask on and off. And we'll talk about mask as well. That mask is a good way to clean up images that you want to remove areas from. And save the channel. We'll cover channels. Like I said, tonight, this video is really, we're just going to cover some of the basics. The view, this is pretty much how you're viewing. I mean, we have show the selection on. I've never used shrink wrap, reduces the image size. That's what that did. Okay. I don't know why I would want to use that, but it's there if you need it. It just basically took this entire window and shrunk it down the size of the image. We'll do that again. Up. View. Shrink wrap. Well, now it's not doing it. Anyway, we'll... well, whatever I did, I will definitely have to figure out what that shrink wrap does. Oh, full screen. That's what it... Okay. That's how I got off. So I wouldn't really mess too much with the views. I mean, you can play around with them, but snap to canvas edges. I guess I'll do more research into these and find out what I know. What the show rulers, show scroll bars. Here's your scroll bars down here and over to the right. Show the menu bar. This is up here at the top. So really view, I can't see that you would use the view menu much. Image, these are things that you can do to the image. We explained what images were prior. These are things that you can do to the image itself as far as transforming the mode. Most of your images for the web are going to be RGB. Transform, flip it, rotate it, canvas size. We kind of went over that before, where we created it, the canvas size. When we created a new file, this is going to allow you to change it if you decide you want to. Fit canvas to layers. Let's say you have brought in a layer and that image was larger than your canvas. You can snap that canvas size to the size of your imported layer. Scale image. I will have to, we can, that's just changing the actual size of the image. And just so y'all know, before you do any of these, here we're going to change this one smaller. So here's the image size that we made larger, and here is the canvas that we made smaller. So we can do stuff in the canvas, but the entire image is going to be this size out here. Now, something I just wanted to go over with you. There's a broken chain link when you first go in here. If I were to just change the width here, it would only change the width. Now, if you close that link or that link of that chain, it's going to proportionately change the height if you adjust the width. So you'll see the number of the height get smaller and larger as I move up and down. Same thing down here. If I change the height, it's also changing the width. Proportionate. So that's just a little. That's something you might want to know if you're changing the size of any of this. Okay, auto crop image. We know what cropping is. And if you just hover over this, it gives you a quick explanation of what each one of them does. And see where I crop that, it cropped the image, the blank areas, down to the canvas size. We have merged visible layers. That's going to put all the visible layers into one, and we'll go over, when I open the tools menu, we'll go over how to tell if the layers are visible. Flatten image, that's going to merge all layers into one image and remove any transparency if set up. Align all visible layers of the image. We know what alignment does. And I have not done anything with these guides or configure grid. Okay, this is the same thing. I was describing the best I could what layers are. You can create new layers from whatever layer is visible or whatever layers are visible. You can create a brand new layer where you're going to start something fresh on it. And I haven't done layer groups. I have used duplicate layer. Anchor layer, that's pretty much if you have a floating layer, it creates an actual layer from it. That happens a lot when you're working with text. It creates a floating layer, and then if you want to anchor that as its own layer, it you could use that, or just there's other options like right clicking when we actually look at the layers window. Merge down, that's going to whatever the hierarchy of your layers, it's going to merge the active layer with the layer right below it. And then you can do some sizing with the layers here. We're going to fast forward right over here to Windows, and I'm just going to show you this layers, channels, paths. This is when I was saying you could right click on a layer, you get to some of the same options as you do over on the layer menu over here, just so you know it's kind of shortcut. But that window and new toolbox, those are two important windows. We talked about brushes. You have different brushes down here. Of course, I need to be on a paintbrush. And if I zoom in on that, that's pretty much that's what the brushes do. And when I was saying you could create brushes by image, you can create your own version of the brush of a brush that would be saved down here. There's even a bell pepper one. If you ever desired to draw with bell peppers. And I'm going to use my shortcuts. The same thing as if I want to come up here, we talked about your undo here. We can look at the undo history, and the history is over here along with the layers are the channels and the paths, and then there's your undo. So if you want to go back here and just undo that one, I just cleared everything. I prefer to use my undo key, but if I want to undo all the way back up to here, I could. Here I'm going back and hitting the redo button, and we'll go back where we were. And I think I've almost undone everything. Oh, I did. I removed my. If you needed to create that window there, you can. Let me close that out. You can manually create it. So I have layers there. I can add in channels. I can just drag that right in. I should be able to drag it right in there. There it is. And dockable dialogues, paths. I'm going to bring that right in there. I want to switch it over just so it's in the same. And then the other dockable dialogues that we had was undo history. And I did not grab it. Undo history. So you can kind of customize your menu like that. But really, these primarily layers, the paths you'll use, undo, and there will be instances when you're going to use your channels as well. So quickly there, I did go over this. The windows is where your windows, everything that you can use here. A lot of this is going to be in your toolbox. The only other one I would use that I use on a regular basis is a tools option. So here you can change, since the tool we're using right now is the paintbrush, I can go in here and let's say that is how it's drawing now. But let's say I want to change the size. Where before I was drawing that color or that size, now we have that size. You can change the opacity so it's more opaque. There, I changed the angle of the bell pepper. Let's boost that back up to 100%. But the tool options, that's a good one to keep open, particularly when we go to text, where every time you go in here, you're going to have to change that. Change the text. So it created it in 18 in the Sans font. If you want to just change that to say 150, and we wanted to change the let's change it to this script, and as you can see, it changed it here. So anytime I create a text box, this is a test, it's going to maintain that those the characteristics or the options that you preset in there. So I guess we could we're not going to cover filters, and most of these tools here are going to be in your toolbox, and we can go through some of the tools there, but you don't have to get so You will use colors menu. You will use filters occasionally once you get a little bit more advanced. But for just starting out, you, we've gone over the menus that you might use. And I think what I'm going to do now is just touch on the tools, the different tools. As you can see, I keep creating. This is another text box. And you can kind of tell because it has these little squares on each corner, and these are just for sizing. If you did want to change this font, you would have to highlight it, and you can either click, hold down, and stretch it out, or you can triple click. Double click's going to do that particular word. Triple click's going to select everything, and let's say we want to change it to 15, and it's going to be really small down there, but I'll zoom in. But you see, we changed that particular text, but if you look at your tool options over here, it's at 150. So if I create text again, it's still going to be at the 150, whatever you have set over here in your tool options. So that's kind of good to know. And if you notice, we're going to go over these layers real quick. Everything I've done here has created a new layer. This is a test, this is a test, and you can select the layer you want to work on. Now if you want, these are floating layers. You can actually I guess this one's not, they've anchored themselves. Oh, this here is floating, but I can anchor this one. Well, I guess I don't know why it's not anchored, but anyway, you can change the visibility of. There's my background, but I clicked the little eyeball there, and it removed it from view. It's not gone. It's just not visible. This checkerboard, since I showed you that's pretty much transparency. There is nothing there. And if you wanted a transparent background, you're going to right click over here and add an alpha channel. So now you can see everything's going to be transparent. So I can remove the alpha channel so it makes it a solid background. Anyway, that was probably jumping the gun a little bit. I'm going to move that back down. Okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove these layers. I'm just going to, I'll show you the merge we talked about before. Let's say we wanted this and the 150 to be the same size. I want to make that bigger so you can actually see it says 150. This is where you can merge down. So now, if the 150 in this is now one single layer. If I merge that down, now we have, this is a test. I don't see, where did I put that? I must have made it, that one must be small. You can see a little dotted line that shows that I did have it highlighted. Let me make that bigger and see if. Oh, there it is. I just had the border so small. Okay, we're going to. Okay. I'm recreating my multiple layers. This might seem all foreign to you. until you actually start doing it. But once you get used to it, it's going to be the most valuable thing that you learn is how to work with your layers. So again, we're going to merge this one down, or we can just merge all. This one, merge all is not here. Merge visible layers. Expand as necessary. And now you can see all that is one layer now. And then we can remove that layer as well. Delete layer. Now it's gone. Now we just have the background with the transparent. I want to fill that with white so that we can, or let's fill it with a different color. That'll be a good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select. This is a fuzzy select. Basically, it's going to try to find what resembles a border, and we're going to use this bucket. That's our bucket fill, and we want to fill the. Let's see how that works. Do I have it? Do I still have alpha channel? I want to create a new layer. Okay. This one, okay, I want to fuzzy select. Let me zoom that back out so you can actually see. There's actually like a dotted line around here. That shows you your selection. And then I'm going to use my bucket, and then we're going to, down here on the bottom of your toolbox is a color selector. If you click on that, this little window pops up, and let's just say we want to fill it with blue. And then I can click in there and look, it filled everything that was within that selection. Let's say on this blue background, we're going over the selects now. We select an oval. If I go to my bucket tool, let's change it to see it's on white now. If I click on here, you see that little circle with a line through it. I can't fill there because it's not within my selection. But if I click inside that selection, it will fill that portion white. Now I'm going to undo that. So there, we talked about invert the selection. Go up here, select invert. This is what I was talking about. Now inside the selection has a circle with a line, meaning I can't do anything inside the selection, but I can outside of it. So I'm trying to tie back what we discussed on the select prior. Now, let's say this is just the rectangle fill. Same thing as before. You can, if I want to delete it, as you can see, it removed everything. So since we have that transparent background, now that's transparent as well. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. These little squares on the sides, on the top, that allows you to move the top border up and down, bottom border up and down, the corners. You can pretty much, move those all around. And I'm going to go up here, select none, and as you can see, it removed the selection. The lasso, this is a free select tool, so pretty much you can build these different points. And there I just created my selection. I close it off with clicking the last, or the first. I went back all the way around to the first dot that I had created. And again, this does the same thing. I want to switch over to the bucket fill, say I want all that to be white. There we go. Control Z to unfill. And invert, I can fill this all in with white. And then back to select none. The fuzzy select, I pretty much need an image for this. Let me open something. There's just a picture of one of the flea markets I set up. I guess I should open as layer, and then we'll open that. Okay. So using this fuzzy select, first I want to make sure I'm on that layer, which I am. You can tell here because it's highlighted. It tries to match up and find a border. So let's say I click on this. Because of this black and this shiny portion here, I can sit here and I can try to remove that chair out of the background. And fuzzy selected, it's just very fuzzy, trying to find borders. And that's creating your selection from that fuzzy select, or what it finds the closest thing to a border. Select by color. That we talked about that on the selection before, but on this layer, it's going to find everything that is that color. And if you zoom in, you'll see that it didn't get all this over here because it's not the same color. Say I want to remove a lot of that floor. The problem that happens here is it's selecting that shade of white or gray, which it's also finding it down here. So if I delete that, you're removing a lot, because and you may not want to. Okay, I just undid all my prior changes by holding down the Control and Z. But I was just trying to, let's say I was just trying to remove that color for the floor. I go, I want to select by color, and I delete it. Well, I deleted half of this Wii game, half of these dolls down here, areas over here, leaving it looking like that, which is not really the look I was going for. Okay. Scissors. It's kind of like the lasso, but if it's going to find it. I should be hitting. Okay, let's go over to this basketball. Let's say I wanted to cut this entire basketball. I can come here, this basketball chair, and I can come here, and it's going to try to find the best line to connect those 2 points. We'll come over here, and as you can see, that's kind of, you can grab your points and kind of manipulate it a little bit. So I'm going to come over here. See, this went out here and grab part of that table. I grab part of that table. I just want to grab the chair. So I'm going to add more points in here. And let's go over here. I'm going to leave the footstool and then close it. And then I'm going to hit the enter button. And now you can see this dotted line here. That is my new selection. If, let's say I wanted to leave that chair. I could go up here and select, invert, delete, and it deleted everything but that chair. If I wanted to, I can invert it again. I can then not create it. It inverted that selection. I can delete the chair. So that's kind of what that scissor tool does. It's kind of like a fuzzy select, but with a little bit more power. And it'll try to best guesstimate the lines that you're trying to follow to create your selection. Foreground select tool. I've never used this, so Ah, I'm going to do select none first because I still had. I'm going to say I've never used the foreground select tool, so I'll have to look into that. I want to turn that off. That is very interesting. It says foreground. Select a region containing a foreground object. I'm just dragging that around, and then I'm going to. Interesting. I don't know. I'll have to look into that and see. Do not use. I would say, unless you can find a reason to use it, don't use it. I'll see if I can figure out what it does, but I've never had to use it. And I think with that, I've been going on for quite some time now. I'm gonna leave it at that. We've covered all the menus that you're primarily going to be using. Covered making sure that your toolbox window is open and the layers, paths, channels, undo history. We covered that. We covered the selection tools in the toolbox. We also briefly touched on fill, color selection, and the text tool. And that was quite a bit for one video. I think we're going on for about 51 minutes. I will try to come up with another one soon, hopefully sooner than it took me to get this one done. If you do have specific things that you're looking or trying to accomplish as you play around with Gimp, feel free to leave comments down below, and I will try to put a video together to address them. That way we can all learn from each other and share knowledge as we get it. Anyway, that's it for today. Bear with, if you're not here for Gimp, bear with the Gimp videos. If you're here to learn about Gimp, and please bear with the other reselling videos that I do, related videos that I do, because that is kind of my primary hobby that makes me money. But if you're here just for the Gimp, look for the updates in my Gimp playlist. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I will catch y'all later. Peace out.